Welcome to our Camp Laverne virtual camp. My name is Jeff Brehmeyer, and today I am going to be making chocolate chip cookies. I have worked at 8 different camps along the West Coast and East Coast, and one of the common things that you'll find at camp is that there's always going to be chocolate chip cookies. So I'm going to be using the recipe from the Betty Crocker cookbook. There are lots of different recipes out there, but this is a very basic one. So we'll start with that. The ingredients call for butter, brown sugar, granulated sugar, baking soda, eggs, vanilla, flour, and chocolate chips. So we have all of those ingredients here before us, and we'll go ahead and get started with it. We're going to start off with some of the wet ingredients. So we'll start off with some butter. The butter is softened already, so you can leave it out for a while to make sure the butter is softened. It calls for a cup of butter. We're doubling the recipe, so we're going to go ahead and put in 2 cups of butter. This is half a cup each, so that is 1 cup in there. And then we'll get these in there as we go along. Big, huge cubes of butter that we'll mix together here soon. So this is 4 halves equals the 2 cups of butter. Okay, so next we're going to add the brown sugar and the granulated sugar to this. This calls for, again, we're doubling here. It calls for 1 cup, so we're going to have 2 cups of the brown sugar. As we're doing this is packed brown sugar. So you're going to take it into your cup and you're going to pack it nicely. Some people like to level it off. It's going to be fine just to put in that 1 cup, and then we'll get the 2nd cup of packed brown sugar. Here, as we add that in. Making a little bit of a mess here, but that just makes it more fun to clean up. So 2 cups of packed brown sugar. Adding that. Yes, that's why they're so healthy, is because there's just a little bit of sugar involved. And then we're going to get the granulated sugar here, and it calls for half a cup, so we will double that and make it a full cup of granulated sugar. Here, let me see if I can add that in. There's a nice rounded cup of sugar. So we're going to take those sugars, we're going to go ahead and mix those together with the mixer. Get it nice and smooth and creamy. About medium speed. This is why you soften the butter ahead of time so that it mixes a lot better. If you haven't, it's going to be pretty chunky in there. After you've been mixing for probably a minute or 2, it should look something like this. Next, we're going to add eggs. It calls for 2 eggs. We're doubling it, so we'll have 4 eggs. Just go ahead and break them in here. Store the shells over there for a moment. 2, 3, 4 eggs. You probably should, after we're done mixing the eggs and the vanilla, you probably should go over and preheat your oven to 375 degrees so that it can be nice and warm for the first batch. So then we're going to add 2 teaspoons of vanilla. It calls for 1, so we're doubling the recipe. 2 teaspoons. It doesn't have to be exact, but if you don't have a great measure of it, you can just, here's your teaspoon. Make sure you're just over the bowl as you pour it in. If there's a little extra vanilla, there's a little extra vanilla. It doesn't hurt anything. So then we have our eggs and our vanilla, and we're going to go ahead and mix these with the butter and sugar. we're now going to go ahead and start adding flour to this. I'm going to start off, it calls for 2.5 cups, we'll double it to 5. I'm going to go ahead and start off with about 4 cups to mix in 1, 2, 3, 4. I like to mix the baking soda in with the flour a little bit. That way you don't accidentally get a chunk of baking soda elsewhere in there. It is calling for half a teaspoon, so a full teaspoon of baking soda. So here's your baking soda leveled off. I'm just going to go ahead and add it to the flour. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and gently mix that in with the flour here. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and add my last cup of flour here. And while this recipe doesn't call for salt, I'm going to go ahead and add some salt because most recipes that I know of call for salt. I'll just put a teaspoon or so in. Make sure that's mixed in with the flour too, so that we don't get something that is too salty. So then I will finish mixing it. Okay, so the last ingredient, probably the most important because it's the name of the cookies, is your chocolate chip themselves. We're using Nestle Toll House. There is a recipe on the back of the Nestle Toll House if you wanted to use that recipe. That's fine. These are folded in, so instead of stir or mixing them with the mixer, you just want to gently pour some of these in, and then you fold them in to the batter. If you've been up at camp, you have had cookies from, maybe it was Corlin Harrison, or maybe it was Lucille Leard, or Janet Hart, or her mom Linda Hart, or Michelle Nava cooked a number of different times up there. Linda Case has cooked a number of times. I've had cookies from all of the different camps. I remember John and Meg Jones up at Camp Myrtlewood in Oregon. They would love to make cookies and bread and all sorts of stuff up there. So you get a flavor of the different camp, and everybody's cookies are going to be just slightly different, but it's really hard to go wrong with chocolate chip cookies. So the next part is just dishing them out or spooning them out onto the cookie tray. So you get about a regular teaspoon that you have and fill that up, and you can just place those directly onto the tray. You want to keep them a little bit apart, otherwise it's gonna be one big cookie by the time they're cooked. So teaspoonful, just clip them onto the cookie sheet here, spread them out just a little bit. Okay, the oven is preheated to 350. I'm going to go ahead and place these into the center rack right here. They're going to be cooking for between 8 and 10 minutes, so you can check on them in a couple of minutes. So I'm taking these out at about 10 minutes. You can see how they're a little bit brown on the bottom there. Quite soft cookies there. Might be a little bit underdone, but there's nothing wrong with a slightly underdone cookie. And they'll continue to bake a little bit after they're on the cooling rack here. So I'm going to go ahead and take a little Darth Vader and put them on the cooling rack here. And we'll have our first batch of these cookies. Here we are. Enjoy your cookies.